Hello, Internet. Get ready for another book dissection. So I asked you guys, what book would you like me to play Doctor with next? One of you mentioned this piece of garbage, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, that has JK's name on it. Now, this is the supposed 8th book in the Harry Potter series, and we all know that is a lie. This is a flaming piece of garbage, so I'm about to fix it. Now, for this, I do want to give a huge disclaimer. And ignore them. They are yelling at each other. So, living with family is great. They're arguing about a freaking shower. Yeah. Anyway, so in this book, we all know it's a piece of flaming garbage. Now, as I said, gigantic disclaimer, because I haven't read this whole book. I think I have a bookmark on the page I stopped. Let's see, where did I stop? 115. This is right after they start messing with Cedric. Right after the Yule Ball, I think. And like right in the hedge scene or whatever they're doing where they're still messing with Cedric. I understand the premise of it. I have read so many summaries and rant reviews and seen so many rant reviews on this. I already know the whole story. Honestly, I'm going to be changing this so much that it really doesn't matter that I haven't read this whole thing myself, because it's a piece of garbage and I don't have to read the whole thing to know that. I read enough and we're about to fix this because it's horrible, okay? It's horrible. So first off, another thing. I personally was not a huge fan of the epilogue that happened in the 7th book. I'm not a huge fan of Jenny, and I didn't want her with Harry. But for the sake of the rewriting of The Cursed Child, I can't touch the epilogue, so we're going to assume the epilogue stands in place and we're just messing with the context of this book and we're doctoring this specific book, despite my personal opinions, which you might or might not already know, because I ship Jenny with Luna, and that is the only instance in which I really care for Jenny at all. But we're going to keep Jenny and Harry together for this book so we can deal with their 3 kids. So for this book, I'm thinking that we continue along the same vein, except we're cutting the whole time travel thing. Time travel, overdone. We don't need to mess with that. Boo. No. I don't want to deal with time travel here. I love time travel, don't get me wrong. But in this series, no, we got magic. We don't need time travel in this series. So what I'm going to have us do is we're going to have Albus and Severus be really good friends. Albus is going to be a Slytherin. Except in my version, he's actually going to be a fucking Slytherin and act like a Slytherin. He's not going to act like a Gryffindor in disguise and then secretly become a Gryffindor because of an alternate timeline. No, we're actually going to have a Potter be a Slytherin. Now, there's going to be a lot of politics around this because, you know, Slytherins have always been counted as the bad guys ever since Voldemort, and a lot of things have gone down that way, so it's going to be really tough for Albus there. Another thing we're going to change, Harry is not going to be a shitty dad, okay? I'm sorry, who came up with that idea? Harry would be an amazing dad. He would make mistakes, sure, but he would be an amazing dad. He would listen to his son. He would try to explain to his son as much as he could, because Harry would never be the kind that would fake or withhold information, because that's how Dumbledore treated him. And although he forgave Dumbledore for that, he also is really angry when people hold out information on him. He would not do that to his son. He would have conversations with his son. So we're not going to play, oh, Harry and Albus don't have a good relationship. No, they have a great relationship. Albus is just an angsty teenager who is scared to talk to his father because that's what angsty teens do. So this book is going to be taking place in the 5th year, because we're going to have a beautiful parallel where the 5th book in Harry Potter, and when Harry was 15, that was his most angsty year. We're going to have The Cursed Child also take place when Albus is 15 and in his 5th year, and it's going to be an angsty blessing, okay? It's going to be amazing. Now, another thing I want to change. Harry does not go into the Ministry of Magic. Why would our boy Harry Potter ever go into the Ministry of Magic, a place he knows is horrible and fails and doesn't do any good? He's just not the type of person to do that. He cares more about individuals than about politics. Hermione going into politics? Yes. Totally believe it. Harry, no. Instead, we're going to put him back in Hogwarts. It makes a lot more sense for Harry to go back as a Defense Against the Dark arts teacher. Maybe he started that job before he got the kids, and now he's been balancing his life as a professor and as kids. And the kids have been raised in Hogwarts a lot because Jenny is a career woman as well. Maybe she played Quidditch, and he took care of the kids a lot. So the kids grew up around Hogwarts a lot. Yeah, that's what I'm changing. I'm changing those aspects. Jenny, Harry are still together, but I'm changing the career aspects and where they live and all of those sort of things because, you know, those are better. So sometime in their years after getting together, Harry ended up becoming a professor, so he had to go back to school and officially get his paperwork done because he just didn't feel right becoming a professor without the actual paperwork. And we all know he never took his newts. So whatever you have to do, become a professor, he eventually did that. He became a dark arts professor. And this way he is still seen as a human instead of just the chosen one. Because, like, if you think about it, Harry is this icon, but he always wants to be close to people and be seen as a person. As a professor, he is being around the new generations and he's being able to teach them how to get away from the bigotry that has been reigning over the wizarding community for eons, not only with the bigotry of the dark community and their hatred for people of muggles or any connection to muggles, but also from the light side where they have a hatred for dark creatures. And so I have this idea that Harry has been a professor for a few years. He is still a professor by the time his kids go into school, and he's just been fostering this great environment at Hogwarts, being this teacher and being someone that people can come to. And that also gives him this really great chance to, like, be more human, because, like, first years of course will hero worship him, but soon people will just say, oh, that's dorky Professor Potter. Like, it would be a great time. I imagine he would be a great teacher. Everyone would love him, and they would see that the hero of this wizarding world is a human being as well, and it'd be a perfect life for Harry. Plus, he gets to go back to Hogwarts, his first home. So I think that'd be very fitting. So first, we're going to have Harry as a professor. Now, this book is not going to be focusing on Harry because it's about his freaking son. I just wanted to give you that background, right? Harry is a great father. He's been a professor. He's beloved by the community, but he's not only loved for being the chosen one, but also for being a great professor and teaching people. All while this is happening, this is where we really get into the plot of what's going on and how Albus and Scorpius end up in an adventure, is that Hermione has been in the ministry working for a long time. Now, Hermione, we know, champions creatures. She first started with house elves, but after Professor Lupin and after everything that happened there, she started championing darker animals as well. So any creature that was categorized as a dark animal, thestrals, centaurs, even house elves sometimes, werewolves, vampires, all of them, Hermione has become the champion for them. And as minister, she's been trying to pass bills through the Wizarding that will give these dark creatures a chance to really have good lives and make homes and get jobs and do stuff, get equal rights for goblins, all of this sort of stuff. And Harry has been working on, like, the kids, making sure, like, the kids know how to treat people better, but Hermione's really been working on how to change the government. And so she's currently trying to pass bills and stuff like that. And we all know this is really, really important to them. So my idea is that the political atmosphere is very strife because not many people and the larger wizarding community really likes the idea of dark magic and dark creatures because of, like, history's past, right? And Hermione and Harry are slowly trying to overturn that in their own way. Now, how Albus and Scorpius get involved is that we still have Delphi, and instead of having time travel be the way that she brings Voldemort back, she's going to try to use dark magic and necromancy. necromancy, because that is a lot cooler, okay? And I've always had this theory that Voldemort isn't truly dead. Now, we remember in the 7th book when Harry saw him in that little purgatory, right, in the place in between the afterlife and the living, where Harry was, and you see a piece of Voldemort's soul. Now, eventually, I have this belief that that's basically limbo between the land of the dead and the land of the living. And Voldemort is stuck there because his soul was ripped into shreds by his own doing. And when all his soul pieces died, all his Horcruxes were killed, they were all sent into this limbo, and now they're kind of stitched together. But because he never felt any remorse for what he did, he can't move on because his soul isn't really in one piece. It's like a Frankenstein soul. So he's been in limbo this whole entire time. Now, Delphi's idea is she is the daughter of Bellatrix, but she's actually the daughter of Bellatrix and her husband. She's not the daughter of Voldemort. She's the daughter of Bellatrix and her husband, and she is as old as Harry is, because Bellatrix had her before Bellatrix got all that whole Longbottom thing and tortured the Longbottoms. However, it was kept secret because Bellatrix never wanted anyone to know, and she was really good at hiding this stuff, right? So she had this child, and the child has been like circling through dark families and other, like, she's been like hidden away, and no one's really known that Bellatrix ever had a child, and there was another Lestrange to inherit. So Delphi has been raised on this idea of Voldemort, on this idea of dark magic, and when the Voldemort's defeated, she's been trying to come up with a way to bring him back because she's learned of it, and she's been studying a lot of really dark magic, and she got into necromancy, and she's come up with this theory that she's known and heard about the Horcruxes through her research, through finding out how he was defeated and stuff like that, that if she can get into and tap into that limbo, then she can bring him back to life. So that is how we're going to bring Voldemort back into it. That is how we're going to bring Delphi into it. That is how we're going to have this whole cursed child thing, is through this. Now, Albus and Scorpius are best friends. They have been for a while. They're both magnificent Slytherins. Now, we also have to fix this problem. We need a golden trio. Now, so that we get out of the same old of the families, I'm going to introduce a new person. I want a Filipino half-blood girl from Hufflepuff. I want 2 Slytherins to have a Hufflepuff friend. I want her to be like fun and energetic, really nice. I want her to be sort of like a Tonks-like character, right? I also want her to be a half-blood because I want her to be raised some part by a Muggle parent, so that she has a lot of like Muggle pop culture references that she makes during it that really confuse Albus and Scorpius a lot. And so when they're doing their Golden Trio adventure stuff, she's kind of spouting muggly things, and they're like, what the hell are you talking about? So I really want that dynamic, because I think that would be really funny to have someone really familiar with Muggle society and Muggle culture telling these things. It'd be like an inside joke. It'd be hilarious. So I want this golden trio. Now, how they get involved with Delphi is that Albus and Scorpius are Slytherins. Now, Slytherin in their common rooms have a slightly different setup. Instead of having a room that is shared by all the boys of the same year, instead, for Slytherin, you only have one roommate, so because they're Slytherins, so like they have nicer accommodations. I think that just makes sense to me. Like, each house has different ways of how they accommodate others that would be more fitting to the type of house you are. So like maybe in Ravenclaw, I don't know, they have like scrolls and libraries in all the bedrooms. I have no idea, but it makes sense. Like Gryffindor would have camaraderie with everyone together, because Gryffindors like to bounce ideas off of each other and like just be extroverted altogether. But like with Slytherins, they only have one roommate to deal with, because Slytherins only can deal with one person at a time. So Albus and Scorpius have been roommates for a long time, and they end up getting a new room in their 5th year because of, I don't know, repairs or something. Anyway, Hogwarts gives them a new room because she wants to give Harry Potter's son a little bit of adventure. So they get a new room, except what they don't know is this new room used to be Tom Riddle's room. So Delphi is trying to figure out ways to bring Tom back, and in doing this, she has been like messing with stuff, right? And really messing around with things. So there's creepy things happening in Tom's room because like Tom cursed it, and by her doing this weird necromancy stuff, she's sort of like bringing little sparks back to life and awakening him and giving him a little bit more juice. Also, she's been sending like little death letters to Scorpius and Albus because she also has this, like, she's insane, right? She's insane. So she has this in her head that she's going to use the blood of the enemy, just like Voldemort did in the 4th book. So she wants to use the blood of Albus because he is the poster child of Harry and he looks just like Harry. And then she wants to use Scorpius because the Malfoys betrayed the Dark Lord. They are known betrayers. So her idea is to use their blood to bring back the Dark Lord and use them. So she's been sending them threatening letters and stuff like that. And there's weird stuff that has been going on in their room. And they're really, really scared and terrified about like what's going on, because it's like, this is stuff they've never seen before. This is stuff that they've heard their parents talk about, but they've never actually experienced this themselves. Like, yeah, there was problems in their times with like the politics, but they've never dealt with this, right? So I think that because it's like 5th book Albus, right? Like 5th book Harry, here Albus is going to want to go to his father, right? But just like how Harry in the 5th book didn't go to adults when he should have because he just didn't think of it, I want Albus to try to go to Harry but overhear something. So I want him to go like to his father's room at the castle and try to tell them, like, after a bunch of creepy stuff keeps happening, try to go tell his father and be like, Dad, weird stuff is happening and I don't know what to do. But when he gets there, he overhears his father talking to Hermione through a fire call, right? Through the Floo, and they're talking about the politics and about getting werewolves' rights, and Harry's really going into like how much he loved Lupin and how he really wants this done, and he wants Teddy's dad's name cleared and stuff like that because he really cares about Teddy and like all of this. And Albus ends up hearing all of this and he feels unsure because he's like, what if these are just like in my head? This is nothing serious. This is just somebody pulling a prank on me because I'm the Potter boy, like in Slytherin. So he's really scared to tell his father and thinks, no, I'll deal with myself, because he doesn't want anything to come out that might endanger his father and Hermione's plans to really get equal rights for dark creatures. And the idea of Voldemort coming back, the idea of dark magic and all of these threatening things that they're getting would ruin all of that. So Albus, in his little hero-y, complexy way that he's inherited from his father, has this idea. He's not going to tell his dad. He's going to try to deal with it himself to figure this out, and that's where it goes from here. Another point that I probably should have said earlier, just for like a note of like how we're going to frame this. In my head canon, Harry is an Indian boy, right? He's half Indian, East Indian. Like, if you look up headcanons about it, it just makes sense to me. Messy hair, being a little bit darker skin, the last name Potter. It just makes sense to me that he be Indian. So that's what he is in my headcanon, right? A mixed child. Therefore, Albus looking just like Harry and Harry looking just like his father is also a little browner. And Hermione is a black child. Like, Hermione is a black child, okay? We all know it. She has like 4C, 3C hair or something. Like, we all know it. She got some massive black girl curls, okay? Like, that's just my headcanon. So like in my version, that is what they look like, and you can get over it if you disagree, but that's what's happening in my head, so you know. Anyway, we're moving on. So the new Golden Trio all try to figure out a way to try to solve this. In their attempts to try to figure out a way to fix this, Albus starts to get really involved in dark magic and really studying it, right? Because he's like, something's wrong. So Albus has been really getting interested in this, and because Scorpius is a Malfoy, he really has a lot of like access to these things because of the Malfoy library. And like, remember, Harry inherited the black library and they were also dark. So Albus also has a lot of access to these things. So they been collecting this stuff and trying to figure out new stuff. Now, I've always had a theory that dark magic really isn't evil. It's just another version of magic. Now, I know some people are going to disagree, but if you think about it, dark magic has a lot of potential. And like, light magic isn't that much greater, because Lily saving Harry, that was blood magic, but we call it light magic. All right, the Patronus requires emotions for it to work. So if you're trying to say, well, dark magic uses more gruesome techniques and uses emotions to work, well, all magic does. So I don't get your point there. I also have this theory, if like you remember the Sepurum Sempra curse, which is what cut off George's ear. So George's ear got cut off through that curse, and Poppy said, and Madame Pomfrey said, oh, we can't grow it back, it's dark magic. But if you also remember, Harry used that curse on Malfoy. And who came to Malfoy's rescue after Harry pretty much slashed this child in half, right? Like, he just cut into this kid with this spell. Severus Snape. Malfoy didn't come away with any scars. So somehow there are ways to heal dark magic. With dark magic. Oh my gosh, what a surprise. You heal dark magic with dark magic. So Albus is really getting into dark magic and necromancy and all of this stuff in the search to try to figure out a way to somehow go against Delphi. And him and his new friends, well, him and his friends, we're adding in this new girl as well, are going to try to figure it out. Now, the other two are very wary and they don't want Albus messing with this stuff, but Albus is determined because he's full of angst and that's what he's going to do. Eventually, we end up confronting Delphi at some point, probably at the end of the year, because like that's how these things go. And we confront Delphi at the end of the year, and she's finally got all the ingredients together, and she kidnaps the boys, right? And what's her face? The little girl, what's the Filipino girl that I just made up, the Hufflepuff. She ends up going to Harry because she's just like, these boys are stupid. I don't know why we didn't do this earlier. And she goes and confronts Harry while Albus and Sever and Scorpius have been kidnapped. So in the scene where Albus and Scorpius have been kidnapped, they're being used. Voldemort's coming back and is like misty, but he comes back at 16 because that's when he first created his first Horcrux. So like that's what he comes back looking like. So he looks about the same age as these two, and they're really freaked out by it because they're gay and they're like, oh my god, he's so hot, because that's they're in love with each other, obviously. Throughout this whole book, they've been angsty with each other. They haven't gotten together yet, but Albus and Scorpius have a thing. It's gonna happen, right? But like they're amazed because Tom Riddle's just like super hot, and they're like, I got some conflicting gay feelings about this, but we're gonna try to save our lives. So Albus ends up going head to head with Voldemort, using dark magic and his new knowledge of dark magic. But of course, Albus doesn't really know what he's getting into. He's really an amateur at this. He's really getting lucky. And I want this moment because like Voldemort has this history of always monologuing. I want Voldemort like to dash Albus and like almost be him and be like, ha ha ha, you really are. Like he like I want him to like hit him and get him like down and walk up to him with his wand and be like, I guess Potter boy, you really are a cursed child, and like drum rolls because like that's the title of the book. And then after that happens, Harry just like comes out of nowhere with like the Hufflepuff friend in the backline and goes, Voldemort, and like punches him in the face. I don't want Harry to use his wand. I want him to like use his fist and knock out 16-year-old Riddle and like start like grappling with him because he's just so infuriated that Riddle tried to kill his kid, right? So Harry just appears out of nowhere because Riddle was too busy gloating that Harry had enough time to like run up on him and punch him in the face. And so now like 30-plus-year-old Harry is grappling with like newly revived 16-year-old Voldemort, and like they're rolling on the ground trying to punch each other because Voldemort knows how to fight because like he grew up in the Muggle world, right? But Harry's like bigger and stronger now, so like they're grappling out. And while all this is happening, Albus is trying to check on Scorpius, who got like knocked out, and they have like one of those ridiculous YA moments where they want to share their feelings on the battlefield. And Albus ends up saving the day because he ends up reversing the necromancy that was done, right? He knows enough magic that he ends up reversing enough of it that he sends Voldemort back to Limbo. Like, Voldemort's still in Limbo now, but now he's back in Limbo, and the Ministry and Hermione shows up like Ministry, and they kidnap or they take in Delphi or whatever her name is, because like she's a freaking criminal, so she gets to go back to Azkaban. She was probably born in Azkaban, I don't know. She gets to go to Azkaban, she gets her mom's cell, it's a nice motherly reunion. I don't care about her, she's gone. Point is she's gone. Okay, so now we have this, everything ends up good. Albus and Scorpius have like given their feelings to each other, they have admitted their feelings, so now they're great. Harry has a sit down with Albus and is like, boy, you better be telling me these things. I don't care how worried you think it'll make me or how much harder you think whatever you tell me will make my life, but I want you to tell me anyway. And they just really have this beautiful heart to heart, so we can have this beautiful father and son moment, and we can see that Albus can see how stupid he was being by thinking that his problems may hurt his father in some sort of way. And I don't know, I'm gonna call the little Hufflepuff friend Fee. And Fee became their friend because like Lily ended up going into Hufflepuff, and because Lily was in Hufflepuff, Albus ended up having more of an interest in Hufflepuff and like visiting and stuff like that, and that's how they ended up meeting Fee, because they never really talked before. Anyway, that's a side point, bonus content of like how this is working, even though it sounds really confusing and I don't know if you're understanding where my story is going. Anyway, so everything ends up good, right? And we're all happy. Now we have an epilogue, okay? We're gonna have an epilogue because this is gonna be great. So in the epilogue, we find out that all of Albus's discoveries with dark magic, with using it to heal things, with like the necromancy, all of this sort of stuff, and this like the good potential of dark magic ends up being one way that we kind of change the political atmosphere, because there are still a lot of families in the Wizengamot who have a little bit of a darker center and a darker core. So they're really happy to have like scientific evidence that says, hey, we need darker creatures and animals and darker beings to like get more equal rights. So it ends up passing, right? And Albus's adventure ends up helping with this whole thing. And so yay, werewolves finally get rights and everything like that. And also, this is the part that's beautiful. Also, Albus goes to visit Uncle George, and he's like, hey, Uncle George, I have something to tell you. And he makes a little talisman for Uncle George, which is basically like a little resurrection stone. But the only reason why Albus can do it, the only reason why it's working, is because George is a twin. You see where I'm going with this? So Albus makes like a little trinket, a little resurrection stone for George specifically, that will allow George to pull Fred back from the other side. So because they are twins and because their souls are like connected by like twin bond stuff, Albus is able to figure out a way through experimentation to connect and basically create a cell phone. And what he uses to do it is a wizard, a Weasley, one of those Weasley extending ears that they sell at the joke shop. So I want him to turn one of those extendable ears into a little lifeline into the other side that George can use, just him, that he can use to call Fred back, so that they can talk. Like, just like a resurrection stone, it's not bringing him back to life, it's just like giving George access to Fred, and so that they can talk and converse. And like, the only reason why it's working, it's not a true resurrection stone, it only works with Fred, and it only works if George is using it because of like twin bond stuff. And that is what Albus does. He creates this, and he's like, Uncle George, I have something that is a prototype. I don't know if this will work, but hold this and think about your brother. And like, Fred shows up, and he's like, he sees that it's an extendable ear, and he's like, oh, you finally got that other ear back. Like something super cheesy and dumb like that. And like George ends up crying, and Fred's like comforting him. And like George calls in the kids that he and Angelina, I think he married Angelina, had, and like the two catch up, and it's really pretty and gorgeous. And even though Fred's dead, Fred's back, and then the twins can be together again, even though they're not technically together. Periodically they can come together. And just to make this a little more heartbreaking, it can only happen at like, I don't know, like Midsummer Eve and Halloween and stuff like that. You know, those times where the borders between death and life are like the veil is thinnest or something like that. So like they can't talk every day, but like they still have this connection, and George is like really happy and relieved because he finally got to say goodbye to his brother, but not really, because now he gets to call his brother like, I don't know, 4 times a year. I think those festivals, if you look it up, there's like there's at least 2, but I think there's 4-ish. Anyway, that's my happy ending. That's happening there. Also, another point that I want to note, Teddy ends up living with Harry, and they were raised together because Harry would never abandon that baby. And I know that baby had a grandmother, but she was all alone. She didn't have any other family. So my theory is that before Jenny and Harry officially got married, Harry was taking care of Teddy and Andromeda, I think her name is, and they were all living in a house together. So now Andromeda still lives in their house with them, but it's not weird. Like, they have a huge house. They have a mansion. Like, I don't know how Americans' family works, but family living with family isn't that weird where, like, I come from. So Andromeda and Teddy have been living with them this whole time, and, like, Harry has been, like, surrogate father to Teddy, as he should have been the whole entire time. So like that's how that worked out, is that Teddy has been living with Harry and Andromeda has been living with Harry as well in their big huge house, because Harry is fucking rich. All right, like he ain't poor, he can afford a house and to feed all of these kids, and that they can all have their own room. So James and Teddy did not have to be shared, and I don't know why we played that game. Harry is rich, okay? That's the only other point I wanted to add. Anyway, in my version, Harry isn't a terrible dad. We're gonna spend most of this with Albus and Scorpius because it's with Albus and Scorpius. We don't need any Harry in this book. I just wanted to give you some backstory for how I think my Harry would have done in the context of this story. As for like addition of people of color or people queer, I haven't really thought of like how much to put in that. Maybe the Hufflepuff friend Fee could be like Ace or something. I think that would be really cool. We, of course, are going to have Albus and Severus together. Albus and Harry are now people of color, as well as Hermione. The Hufflepuff is a person of color. Just more people, like new teachers are probably going to be new interesting teachers and stuff. Maybe we have a few werewolf teachers, maybe we have another centaur teacher, because you know, like eventually McGonagall's going to have to retire, you know? I'm sorry to say, but like she needs to retire someday, okay? Like just I don't know how to exactly fit those in, because I of course don't want to make any token characters, but like we got a lot of book to work with. Like the story I just said probably is not going to be this short. It's probably going to be like Deathly Hallows long. It's going to be a pretty lengthy book, and I think in those pages we can fit in ways to authentically have a more diverse cast of wizards and witches, and also creatures, because we gotta have like some vampires. Maybe I have this idea that Fee could probably have like a love for vampires. Like she's Ace, but like she really loves vampires for whatever reason. Like she's in love with the idea of vampires. She has a vampire obsession, because like I said, she grew up in the Muggle world, so she like had that Twilight phase, and then she realized, oh yeah, vampires are a real thing, and like now it's like her new thing, and she's always talking about vampires, and maybe like a vampire comes to visit. I don't know. Point is, that is my version of a cursed child. It's really messy. It's really all over the place. But honestly, it's probably 10 times better than the mess that this was. So yeah, we're gonna have evil. We're gonna have a whole Tom Riddle coming back thing. We're not getting rid of that. We're gonna have Albus. We're gonna have Scorpius. We're not gonna put them in frickin' Gryffindor. They are Slytherins. We're actually gonna have them act like Slytherins, because God damn it, they're Slytherins, and I want main characters who are Slytherins, who are good guys, and we're gonna have Slytherins be friends with Hufflepuffs, because Hufflepuffs need a lot more rep, okay? You guys, stop talking down about Hufflepuffs. Hufflepuffs need more rep, and we're not gonna have any Gryffindor main characters other than Harry. Like, we're gonna see, like, other Gryffindor characters in classes and stuff. You know what? We're gonna have a Gryffindor bully. That's who we're gonna... Albus Potter's arch nemesis is some like Gryffindor pansy who just hates the fact that a Potter could be in Slytherin and thinks it's a betrayal, and that's who the arch nemesis. Basically, we're flipping it on the head and we're seeing that Gryffindors aren't saints and Slytherins aren't evil, and we're getting a Hufflepuff main character so that people who can remember Hufflepuff is actually a house. We don't know what they do, but they exist, okay? So we probably should acknowledge them too. So that is my rewritten, doctored version of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, which we are not calling Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. We're calling Albus Potter and the Cursed Child, because it's not freaking about Harry Potter, is it? No. The 8th book is about Albus. I don't know why. Like, it's not about Harry. It's just a continuation of the Potters. Or maybe the Potters and the Cursed Child. I don't know. Albus Potter and the Cursed Child. Final answer. That is my new title for my new book. And that is how that's going to go. So, yeah. So, if you have any additions you want to make to my beautifully doctored version of The Cursed Child, comment down below. And if you have any more suggestions of books you would also like to see me doctor sometime in the future, comment those down below as well. And goodbye, Internet.